And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Mike Bozak's our guest. Mike is with the Landmark Society of Greater Utica. We're talking about landmarks in general and one in particular, and that's Utica's Union Station. And Mike, Union has nothing to do with labor, does it?
No, not at all. In fact, a lot of people get confused by that term. A Union Station is one that may be built by either consortium of railroads or one particular railroad, and in this case, it was the New York Central. It was not built originally in 1914 as a Union Station. It was strictly built for the New York Central. But a year and a half after it opened, they accepted the Lackawanna Railroad and also the O&W Railroad in the northwest corner, basically, on a couple of platforms there. So therefore, it became a Union Station. And it's a Union Station today because it also has the Adirondack Scenic Railroad. It's a multimodal transportation center because it also is the bus station.
Yeah.
So it is really, it was at the cusp of a change in transportation modes instead of having separate buildings to have it all in one. And there are a lot of, as they say, cross-platform boardings where like kids going to college will get off the train, get on a bus to go to school or whatever.
Yeah. One of the things that I remember as a kid was getting on the train to New York City and going down instead of up over the tracks,
Yes.
going down into those tunnels. And I always thought that was kind of a neat thing.
I love the tunnels, yes. Yeah. And I recall that they were not that wide, maybe 15 feet wide. The original tunnels were about 30 feet wide, but they had used them somewhat for civil defense, for the air raid shelters and all that, so they cut them down and all. But they were always wet.
Yeah.
And the reason is that's really where the original Mohawk River was. And to build Union Station, they actually moved the Mohawk River about a half a mile north in an artificial channel and then took the fill and made that the not only the tracks for the passenger trains but also the freight yard.
Wasn't that a condition that the New York Central laid down, Mike? They said, we want to build a new train station, but we're not going to build it if we keep getting flooded every spring.
Yes, that was. And they also decided that Utica was going to be a junction point, basically from New York City to Utica, Utica to Buffalo. At the time, it was 3 different divisions, and apparently it only lasted about, I don't even think it lasted a year before the unions got in and said, no, we're going to have the 3 divisions again. So when it was built, and for much of its life, it wasn't fully occupied. They rented out a lot of space. It wasn't all for railroad use. I think it was the second floor that was used for the accounting department, so they would do payroll for the New York Central for many, many years, and then in the early 60s, I believe it was 1964, they moved that operation to Detroit, Michigan Central Terminal, and also a lot of people had to move. And it wasn't until the county took over that it became fully occupied.
And now, as you say, the county has got, well, the DMV is in there and other, the United County
Board of Elections is there.
Board of Elections and the visitors, tourist group, Kelly Blazowski's group is in
Yes.
there. And what have you got in there today, Mike? I haven't been down there in a few months, but you got a barber shop.
Still has a barber shop.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, and the Adirondack Scenic Railroad has their ticket office there. Unfortunately, they're not been able to run because of the situation.
Yeah, Greyhound is down there.
Greyhound Trailways. Yeah.
Is the restaurant still operating, Mike?
It is, trackside.
And I was reading history not too long ago about Union Station, and back in the day, they had, oh my goodness, they had a bar and grill. They had 2 shoe shine stands. They had all kinds of stuff down there, shops, and back during the war, that's when that place was bustling.
Oh, yes, and you had mentioned the tunnels and all that. They had red caps, actually, that would take your bags
I remember
for
that.
you and put them
Yeah.
on the train or carry them for you and all. Yes, it was a very bustling place, especially during the war years.
What happened with, I'm going to get back to that in a second, the war years, but what happened with the tunnels? Did they fill that in?
They did. They did. It was more of a liability, I believe, so they decided that they would go up above the tracks, which took a long time. Basically, they had to get permission from CSX Railroad and their engineering department, which took, I think, several years for them to actually do that. So it works very well now. You've got elevators and everything that you know, go above and beyond the tracks, and it's a great place to watch trains.
It is a great place to watch trains, and I do that not too infrequently. The stairs that go down, the wide staircase that go down into where the tunnels used to be is still there.
Yes.
But those doors are closed. So if you were to open those doors, it would just be dirt.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The other thing about Union Station, Mike, was during the war, we had all these troop trains coming through, and the amount of people on those trains, the amount of people getting on and off in Utica was just tremendous.
Yes, where the DMV is now was the USO, so that was always a very popular place with the troops to relax while they're waiting for trains and all that. And
the USO, years ago, I went into the room that housed the USO, and where was it? Was it behind, I don't know, got hidden away through a false ceiling or something, but there was artwork.
Yes, murals.
Murals,
And
yeah.
all that. And they were done by local artists and all that, I think through schools, the local schools and all that. So I did, before they covered those over, and they are covered over in a way that they could be, you know, that you could take the walls off and actually see them. But I did a lot of photography and all that. It was pretty interesting artwork.
Yeah, and there were so many troops coming in and out of Utica, they had military police stationed here because they needed them here because we had so many troops, and I think they used the Bagg Memorial Building as their headquarters.
Wow.
Yeah, Bagg Memorial Building is another building I want to talk to you about later on in the show if we have the time. The tracks aren't owned by the same people that own the building, correct, Mike?
No. The tracks are owned by the CSX Railroad and all that, which is, sometimes it becomes very difficult with passenger trains that have different schedules than the freight trains. The passenger trains should have priority, but obviously if you get behind for some reason, then the freight trains take over and they're going much slower. They're going between 50 and 60 miles an hour. The passenger trains go up to 79 or 90 miles an hour, depending on where you're at. So it becomes a little bit of a difficult situation to be able to accommodate both. I know there's been some talk recently of adding, say, a third track that could act as a runaround track, basically, for passenger trains. I haven't heard anything with that lately, but I know there has been some talk about that.
Okay.
Back in the 60s, I remember actually being a young man, being very upset about the fact that they took out 2 of the 4 tracks. The New York Central ran 4 tracks all the way through New York State. And in the mid-60s, about 1966, they ripped up the 2 rails because of centralized traffic control and this and that. So that, to me, was a huge mistake. I know they're trying to save money, basically, when things were hurting and all, but to me, that was a big mistake.
All right, Mike Bozak's our guest. We're talking about Utica's Union Station, a key landmark, and Mike is with the Landmark Society of Greater Utica. We'll talk some more right after this. Short break, right back.